Okay, so now that your heat map is set up, now I'm going to kind of give you a guided walkthrough of everything in the Airoverse Portal, things you can expect to see. I'm not going to cover every aspect of it, and some of the things you'll see here you may not have access to yet. Some things you get access to once you go through additional certifications. So we're going to cover all the big ones though, especially when you're first doing the install. So we'll dive in here. And we'll start with our heat map and just kind of what you're seeing here on the heat map. And we've only got 3 zones, so it's fairly straightforward what's going on. You can see I've got my 3 zones. What can be less obvious is that you can actually click or hover over the CCU name up here to get system level data. And the system level data is what your central control unit is controlling and information about that central control unit itself. So in this case, you can see it's a VAV staged RTU. That was the selection we made. And then we've got all of our trend data coming from that central control unit. So you can always hover over that trend data. And that's your system data. We'll go back out. You can actually filter by floor, CCU, or zone, which is fairly straightforward, except you do have to deselect all zones before you search one. So if I wanted to look for RTU 15, and it's a bigger site, sometimes this is a lot more useful on the larger sites when it's harder to see where all the zones are. What it will do is it'll push all the other zones to the background, and then I get RTU 15. I can hover over and get a quick snapshot of it, or I can click in to RTU 15, see the graphic for the rooftop unit. If I don't want to see that, I can close it. I don't want analytics, but I do want to go to predefined widgets. There we go. And again, I see my trend data. So if I scroll down, I can see everything coming from it. I'm not going to cover what's all covered in that trend data, but just so you know where it is, everything coming from that thermostat is here. Some points are hidden behind there, and you can create custom analytics for that. We'll cover that in other videos. If you want to change your date range, the date range is the green text here at the top. So by default, it's going to show you today. There's some quick select options, or you can choose just the last 3 days or 2 days or whatever date range you want to look at. So if I do that, you can see we had a little bit of data coming from yesterday, and now we're getting a little bit more today when we turn this thing back on. You can download the data if you ever need it for anything. If I close all of these, then I can go down to zone settings. That's where I can make override adjustments. If I make an override adjustment to this desired temperature during occupied period, it will hold that until the end of the occupied period. If I make that change during an unoccupied period, it will hold it for about 2 hours by default. And that is adjustable. I can change my modes just like any other connected stat here. If I want to change fan modes, you can see the schedules, add my special schedules and vacations directly from the heat map. Once you're set up, the facility manager and the installer, most of your time is going to be spent on this page looking at trend data, the graphics, and things like that. So also on the heat map, what you can do is there's a filters icon over here. That filters icon allows you to recolor code the heat map based on any parameter in the system. So if you had a tuner value, or you wanted to look based on occupancy state or the type of device, or if there's active alarms, there's a bunch of different ones in here. So one that I like to use, especially on new sites, is the device type. You can click that, and then it recolor codes based on the device type. You can create your own, or there's ones that are shared by the community. You see that there's likes on some of these, and you can bookmark them. If I choose RSSI, it'll recolor code how somebody laid it out for your received signal strength. That's telling you how well the mesh network is performing right now. And you see that all of mine are in the medium signal to good signal range at the moment. So that can be super helpful when you're going to troubleshoot, or if you're trying to make sure values are getting set across a large number of devices at once. We're going to scroll down. I also want to talk just briefly about summary tables. It does get used quite a bit. So we have a few different device types, so it won't look great on this site, but we're going to do it anyway. So there's a few that I created. One of them is like a modes override. This is one where if I click that table open, I can hover over, it tells me why and what I created there. And then what you can see is that each zone becomes a column. Each zone that has these points becomes a column. And then the points that are part of the list are here, so I can see what modes everything are in. And if I wanted to override, we can view priority array, and then you can override one at a time, or you can do bulk overrides by clicking over here on the points. So again, I don't want to spend too much time on that. I'm just showing you what is in here, so you can kind of know what to expect. All right, so I think that's it for a quick overview of the heat map itself. I think next, let's look at our scheduling. When you're done with an install, that's like the primary thing you're going to do, is you're going to make sure that your set points are set right, your occupancy times are set right, and that your user adjustable ranges for the stats are set correctly. So what we're going to do, you can do scheduling one by one, but the much simpler way to do it, and the way I like to train on, is to go over here to the scheduling tab on the left. So if I open that scheduling tab, what you're going to see is Matt's training default schedule here. I admit this can be a little bit to take in the very first time, but it offers a great amount of flexibility for setting schedules the way that you and your site need them set. So the default schedule, if I open that up, you expand it, you can see that my default schedule is a weekday plus weekend schedule. So every weekday is going to be the same. Every weekend can be a different thing, or Saturday, Sunday would be a different time. Underneath of the schedule, it shows me what it's applied to. So it shows me it's applied to all 3 zones. By default, this is the schedule that all zones, all equipments will follow unless you set it otherwise. So what I want to do is I want to show you can create another schedule. So let's go ahead and add schedule up here at the top. If I add schedule, we're going to have to give it a name. So I'm going to say it's my office schedule. Office schedule is my description. Those descriptions can get more elaborate if you have campus deployments or large franchise deployments. So office, so let's go ahead and expand that. You see that the office isn't applied to any zone right now. If I click edit that schedule, there's 4 options at the top. I could make every day the same. I could do weekday, weekend, weekday, Saturday, Sunday. If we work part day Saturday, but nothing on Sunday. So if I want to delete one of these, the orange occupied periods, you click on it. If you want to delete multiple, you can control click and you can delete all 3 at once. So you just hold control, click the little delete at below it. And I'm going to say weekdays, it's 6 to 6. And then on the weekend, it's going to be something like 10 to, I don't know, 4, something like that. And then I have no schedule on Sunday. If I scroll down, actually first what I want to do is I want to control click. I want to select all the orange boxes. I want all my set points to be the same. If I scroll down after selecting those points, what I can do is I can set my default heating and cooling set points. And you see that right now it's forcing a 4-degree deadband between my 2 set points. As I drag my cooling down, the heating also gets pushed down. If I think 72 is too high for a heating set point, or 67 is too low, or I want to make my cooling set point allowed to go below 72, what you can do is we can adjust our user limits. And the user limits are the actual adjustable range that will be present on the stat once I apply this schedule. So every stat that we push the schedule to will get that set of user limits. So if I want to make it, I'll leave 67, but I think 72 is too high on the heating side, but 72 is too high on the cooling minimum, so I'm going to change that. But now it's giving me an error that's telling me I have to have at least my 4 degrees between 70 and 67 because I have that forced 4-degree deadband. So to fix that, I'm going to change, I actually want to have tighter set points anyway in my office. I want a 2-degree deadband. Now what I can do is make it 70 and 68. And that's about how I would want it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save for selected time slot. And now I've created a schedule, but I haven't applied it to anything. So to apply it, just below the schedule, once I've opened it, you see I click that caret, and down here there's add zones to the schedule. What I'm going to do here, primarily I'm just going to expand my entire site. I'm going to select all, and then if I have a few zones I don't want, like my warehouse, I'm going to say my warehouse is not part of the office. I'm going to deselect that, and I'm going to hit apply. And now what you'll see is VAV, 2 of the zones, the 2 I selected, now are following this schedule and these user limits. And then if I go to my default schedule, the one they were all following previously, now only the warehouse is following that schedule. So it is always the last push is what's assumed by those thermostats or those zones. All right, I think that's pretty good on the basic schedules. We also have special schedules and vacation schedules. So if we go down to special schedules, what I can do is I can create something like a Friday party, right? And this Friday, so I'm going to select my date. I'm going to say this Friday we're having a party, just that one day. And I'm going to say it's after work. It starts at around 3 o'clock. And it goes, we'll just set it to midnight to make sure that we're comfortable. And again, this assumes default user limits. What I might want to do is I might want to adjust everything really low so that I can overcool the space because we're having a whole bunch of people in the office that otherwise aren't usually there. Okay, and that's about right. So I want to go all the way down to 67, leading up to Friday's party. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And now on Friday, between 3 and midnight, it's going to ignore my regularly scheduled occupancy period, and it's going to use this. Vacations are essentially the opposite. If I have a Christmas vacation, we'll go select Christmas Day, or if you have multiple days off, you can select multiple days at once. I'm going to say we're off until New Year's Eve. So if I go ahead and hit save, boom, now I've got a Christmas vacation that will just leave the building in unoccupied for those 5 days. So all that does is it leaves it in unoccupied. It doesn't do anything more than that. It just ignores your typical weekly schedule. Some people get confused by this building occupancy. That's for some advanced configurations that you can set up when you're doing some integrated type jobs. For most users, don't ever worry about it. Don't use that to adjust your schedules. Create your schedules or edit your default schedules up here. Click that arrow. This is the schedule you want to edit. Do not edit the building occupancy unless you have a really good reason to. Oops, that's where I wanted to go. All right, so that is schedules. I think the next thing that typically happens after an install is you're going to want to do user management. You might want to add your other install techs, your other service techs. The facility manager might want to add their counterparts. So to do that, you're going to hover over the 9 boxes. The 9 boxes are what we call our portfolio level tools. And we're going to go to user management. So under user management, you're going to see all the sites you have access to. If you only have one because this is your first install, that's okay. It would just show up right at the top. But I need to search for the one that I've created that we're working on right now. And down here under Matt's training, you can go ahead and add a user. So under that site, all you're going to do is type in their email address, their name, and you're going to select a role. So I'm the primary admin, so I can select any of the 4 roles. Depending on your access level, if you're a secondary manager, you can only add a couple of types of users. You can't add every type of user. So you might see a restricted list depending on what access level you have on the site. A secondary manager essentially gets all the access that I'm showing you right now, minus the ability to add certain types of users. An occupant gets specific access to a zone, a very specific zone for adjusting temperature adjustments from their phone. It's a specific application. They can't log in through the web. A secondary installer is essentially a secondary manager, but at a slightly lower tier, so secondary managers can manage those users. Then you have view-only facility managers. That's pretty self-explanatory. They're going to get just about everything you're seeing, but without the ability to edit any of it. So I'm going to go ahead and add myself as a secondary installer. And you can select, if you're in the States or Canada, if you're using a different set of units, you just go ahead and hit add, and then they're going to get added to the site. So I added myself again, so it's almost irrelevant, but they would show up in that list if you added a new user. And then they would get the same set of emails that you got to set up their account, and then they'll be able to log in. And once their account is set up, they'll be able to use those sets of credentials for every site that they get added to after that day. Okay. All right. So next, let's talk about notifications. So at the end of every Airoverse install, someone should be doing a commissioning check and making sure that your relevant alerts are enabled. If you're the installer and you go through some of the advanced certifications, you might be the one doing that. As a level 1 installer, most of that just happens for you. What we'll do is we're going to go to our account. So you hover over your name, go to account, and this is where you can change your email, phone number, and stuff like that. But also here is notification management. So under notification management, you can go to the site that you want to enable notifications for yourself for. And then here, what you have is a list of all of the active alerts, or the alerts that are set up on the central control unit. So depending on the install and when you do this, you might have a restricted list here, because often all of these are not relevant to every install. And the Airoverse team will deselect the ones that aren't relevant to you. So once we're in here, all you have to do to enable one of these, and a common one is building temp limit breach. If something's getting way too cold or too hot, we can go ahead and set up my email and text notifications according to whatever email and phone number are in my account details. Then you can set up mobile push notifications if you want. And yeah, you can notify when fixed over here if you want to do that as well. So it's as simple as that for enabling them. You can disable them if you decide you don't want them. If you want to see what active alarms there are, the alarms are going to generate anyway. Whether you get notified of them is what you're doing here. So if I wanted to see what active alarms I have, I can click on the bell over here or the bell down here. They both take me to the alerts. And then it shows me in a list here all of the alerts, and right now it's hiding fixed. If I want to see every alarm in a log that's been generated, I can do that. I can change how many are shown in the list, just like that. You can hover over one of them. If you ever want to mark one as fixed, I can mark as fixed manually. All right, and I think that's alerts and notifications. There's definitely more you can do. You can set up custom alarms, notifications, stuff like that. But that's kind of at a different level. We'll have other training videos specifically for that. All right, I think the next thing I want to cover is a new feature. It's Active Scan. So within Active Scan, I'm going to change this back to my default so it looks right. So what Active Scan is, this is where you can actually create or actually just print out the QR codes that are automatically generated with live view-only web links to each one of your zones. And what that's good for is that if we click on this QR codes button up here, what you're going to see is I have a list of all of my zones with a tiny URL and a little view button. So that little eyeball shows me this. This is what Active Scan is, and that QR code, if I scan it with my phone, will take me to that tiny URL that gives me live view-only access to this zone's data and graphic. So without having an account, any service technician that comes up to this piece of equipment, if I print this out, can now have that view-only access for troubleshooting. So to print these out, you can shift-click all the zones that you want to print or control-click, and then a print button appears in the upper right. I print, choose the size of stickers I'm using, and I hit print, and then boom, I've got one of those QR codes for every one of my zones that will essentially give me the data that you see under this graphic and the predefined widgets. So I will get this and this data right in my phone without having an account. So that's ActiveScan. There's definitely a lot of hidden tools within this that I didn't cover here, that when you go through some advanced certifications or start watching our other videos, you can definitely take advantage of as you start doing more installs.